everyone, and good afternoon. Welcome to our daily drop update nonsense for today here on a Monday, March 27th. I am your host, Taran Armstrong, here to update you on everything that we know from the latest drop from the Big Brother Canada 11 house. And we've got some information for you here today, so strap in. With me today to talk through it all is Matt. How you doing, Matt?
I am good. If bbcan 11 were a season that we were all so invested in and so enjoying, I think this would be a very fun HOH week for us to be looking into. And I mean, I haven't watched all the other drops as much as this one, but this one was worthwhile to watch all the way through. It had a lot of good stuff.
Yes, a lot to get through here in the drop today, as we from the last time we saw the house, Koozie had won HOH, and she had mentioned that her ideal target was Santina, and that she planned to put Santina and Vanessa on the block with the intention of sending Santina out and having Dan as a potential backup target if the veto were to be won and used. That's the last we heard from the House. But now the nominations have happened. The veto has happened. And all that's left is the veto ceremony and who may be going up and or in trouble once we get there. So to give you the Cliff Notes version here, as of right now, it appears that it is possible that Vanessa may have won Canada's safety, which would have prevented her from going on the block. And so instead, Koozie decided to put Hope on the block with Santina, which would mean that I assume that he was cool with that for the most part, because he was happy to play in the veto competition once again. This is kind of probably what she should have done in the first place, considering he is a willing pawn, and not somebody that it's like the biggest deal in the world, like that if that she potentially loses, and also the guys probably wouldn't be campaigning against him if he's up against Santina. So either way, he seems to be perfectly content with the fact that he went on the block, especially because he then won the veto, which means that he, at least at the beginning of this drop, intends to use it on himself, and Koozie will have to name a replacement. Now, who the replacement is going to be at this point is a little bit up in the air. And you know what? We're going to leave it a little bit of a mystery because we've got to solve that mystery as we go through this drop.
Yes. Just to go back to the Hope of it all, I mean, there's going to be some conversations with Hope throughout this drop. But I think Puya is the one that stands out in my mind. He was talking about Hope just wants to be here to play these games, compete. But it would certainly be a good candidate if the challenge ever comes knocking on the doors of Big Brother Canada, because this guy just wants to play in the competitions, wants to win them. And the idea of winning them is giving him purpose to continue playing on in the game and finding people around him that support him and give him that big pump up when he wins. So he is very much more motivated than it sounds like he had been prior. But yeah, he also seemed totally fine with having been on the block. This week is playing out a lot differently for Koozie, I think, so far than I guess any of us, or at least that I had anticipated after hearing that she had won HOH. A lot different.
Yes. Well, we started the drop with a conversation between Koozie and Hope. She is asking him his thoughts on Renee. He says he thinks Renee is very trustworthy. She asks about Shania. He says she's just chilling. He's never really talked game with her before. She says, okay, so basically Shania would not be horrible to get out, but Renee I shouldn't touch. And Hope's like, sure. I really trust Renee. If you're looking at someone to run with, I think Renee would be a good call. And Koozie says, well, I am not gonna lie, I was looking at Renee because I kind of want to know why everyone's putting her on the block. But here's the thing, I don't think that makes a lot of sense. The other person I'm looking at is Dan. He has absolutely no plans for me in his life ever, I think. So for me, that seems to be the most sensible thing. It should have been done earlier. Basically, it seems like her and Hope still on good terms. She's telling him the plan is Dan. And I'm like, how did this happen? Right? Like, I was here on Friday saying, I feel like Koozie's best shot is to take out Dan this week. Don't put up Vanessa. And all of a sudden, she hasn't put up Vanessa. She put up Hope instead. He's totally chill with it, and her target is Dan. I'm like, this is a miracle. Koozie has managed to figure it all out.
And if that's all you watched in this daily something, then your plan sounds great.
If you don't want any complications with your Koozie standum, end the update here.
Watch after 10 minutes of the drop and pause this down.
It might get better for you. It might get worse for you. It depends. It's a mixed bag. You never know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's still very much an option. I know we're going to get into what else might be on the table, but it still is in contention that Dan could be the one that goes on the block. She's just got to weigh her options and get through to some big meatheads that are standing in her way.
Mm. So she tells Hope, I haven't had an in-depth talk with anybody yet. And he says, what are you talking about? I saw you talking to Zach last night. She says, oh, oof. He was just pitching something I didn't want to hear. He says, okay, well, after I won last night, I thought I want to do this again. So I don't know if people have like said this before, but thank you for putting me on the block, Koozie. I appreciate it. She's like, great. Once again, I'm focused on Dan right now. And he's like, well, how much do you trust Daniel and Anika? She says, well, I trust them. But I do question how capable they are in the game. That seems to be her go-to line when it comes to like, yeah, I'm close to them personally, but I don't really like, trust them in the game. They're not like game players. And so, how much does she really believe this? I actually think she probably does believe it, considering how she's going to sort of handle the situation a little bit later. Hope says, well, Daniel C., he's a real one. I want to be friends with him outside the game. And she says, yeah, they're great people. I also think Jonathan's a great person. And Hope's like, well, I don't think Jonathan's going to be lasting too long in this game. And he says, look, just anything you need in the game, I'm here for you. I'm pledging my allegiance to you. And, we're all good.
Sure. Sounds good. The trio of Anika and Daniel C. and Koozie this is certainly not a one-to-one comparison, but giving me a little bit of like Paris, Maddie, and Will vibes of just like sitting in a little bit of the center, just kind of like, there's awareness that they are potentially a group, but certainly not the biggest threat that stand out. There's some strategy going on as far as we can see between members in this group. And there's also a bit of a wild card if I'm comparing it, trying to make it a one-to-one. Daniel C. is currently the Will for me of just not, I don't know, the emotions getting involved at the moment, and we're going to get to that conversation in a second. So I don't know if this is anything to track, but if that makes Koozie the Paris, then that works perfectly fine with my narrative. I'm good with it.
Yes. Well, Ty actually walks into the middle of this conversation at one point and then walks straight back out. And let me tell you, he doesn't look pleased. She asks Hope, well, Ty knows we were talking now. Please don't tell anybody about our conversation. He promises not to. He says he's done with all the sneaky stuff after what happened with Rob. She says, I get it. I kind of knew it was you. But I didn't question you about it because I didn't care. They're talking about his vote. He has now admitted his vote to multiple people in the house, and one of which is Koozie. She says, I never really cared. He says he appreciates that. And then Zach comes in and interrupts them because guess what? Zach and Ty are a little nervous. So they're going 1-2 to the HOH room.
Yeah. He's like, hey, man, just wanted to go lift. No interest in anything you guys are talking about here. Not at all.
Yes. So we cut over to Anika and Daniel. And so I remember at this point, I'm like, man, I think we killed this. I think, the Koozie's kind of going through with what I think was best for her game, taking Dan out, removing the connection to Shania, taking out a big comp threat, ideally keeping Ty relatively happy with the plan because he was wanting Dan out before, and hopefully everything's chill. Anika and Daniel, though, are telling a different story to each other. Anika is talking about how it should be Ty. Ty should be the one going out. And I'm like, well, yeah, for you, but for Koozie right now, I don't know. And she says, well, look, she's telling Daniel, if Ty goes out, everyone's on their own. He's the glue that holds everyone together. But Koozie doesn't see it that way. And I'm like, you're totally right. This is actually wild. This is Ty's caught. Oh boy. And Daniel agrees. He's like, Ty is 100% the one to get out, but Koozie will never do it. And I'm like, guys, come on. You're asking Koozie to take out somebody that really trusts her. And he says, it's not even worth pursuing it with Koozie because it's going to be Zach. It's not going to be Zach. It's going to be Dan, right? It's going to be Dan. What are you talking about? It's going to be Zach. It's not going to be Zach. Wait, is it going to be Zach?
Might be
Zach.
Might be Zach. Two things here. One, very impressive that you were able to hear a thing Anika said. I couldn't.
It was annoying.
I could not. I turned the volume all the way up, and I had to rely on Daniel's part of the conversation to clue me in on what they were talking about. So there's that. And the other part is that, yeah, there's also, I don't know how much this has been, I guess, tracked so far, if this has been in past drops, but Daniel C. and Zach seem to have some kind of connection here, which is I guess Zach just playing up a bit of a flirtatious kind of card, or just extra friendly kind of thing going on with Daniel. And that's like they have a bond, they have some kind of relationship going on in the house. So Daniel's even extra protective of Zach, and on top of the fact that they're seeing Ty as the bigger threat that he probably is, between the two of them, he also does not want to see Zach go, because Zach could be potentially in his corner going forward. So Daniel is very upset, talks about how he needs some time to just cool off after hearing about this potential plan, and just kind of reset. And Anika's a lot more level-headed about it, but Daniel having this connection is making him a lot more I guess emotional about it.
Yes, worth pointing out that, and we'll get to this, but the way that Koozie describes Daniel's relationship with Zach is pretty different than how Daniel describes his relationship with Zach. Particularly because Daniel is trying to develop, I think, connections, and feels like Zach is a connection for him. On top of the fact that Ty is more dangerous, and as as Anika is going to say, well, if what Koozie said is true, then Ty said that he would put us up on the block next week. And Daniel they're both convinced that they don't think Zach would do that, because they have Zach, but they don't have Ty. So this is a selfish move for Koozie that helps potentially her, but not them, is how they're sort of feeling. But Daniel is more upset about it, certainly, than Anika, as you pointed out.
Mm-hmm.
And Daniel goes as far as to say, it's going to be Zach, but I'm not voting Zach out over Santina. I'll tell you that right now. And Anika says, I do think that Ty needs to go. He's the glue between Zach and Santina. God forbid Santina wins. And Dan is like, that's my other problem. Now, all of a sudden, we're not sending Santina home, when Santina blew us up as a group, and now we're keeping her. I get that Koozie's setting herself up, but she's blowing up our games. And Anika's like, I mean, I do think she's just trying to help, I think. And he's like, well, I'm frustrated by that too. Because Koozie's like, oh, I need Zach out before Ty because of the way that he's playing you, Daniel. Like, let me play my own game. I'm a grown man. It's so condescending. And he's just like, it's fine. It's fine. I'm like, I'm pissed about it right now. I'll get over it tomorrow. But oh my God.
You see a lot of this in the later conversation. I won't get too much into it now, of the Koozie and Ty. That I guess this must have also happened in the Koozie and Daniel conversation, of just like, slight convincing back and forth, or trying to be convincing the other person back and forth with little like bits of, oh, well, then, if you make this move, then this won't happen and this won't happen. Typical big brother, trying to convince your allies of something that may not be in their best interest, but you want to pretend that it's in their best interest, kind of thing. Daniel's just smart enough to not fall for it. He is, he knows how his game would best play out, and Koozie telling him potentially, what the best move might be for him and how this could. He's like, let me make my own decision. So I get the frustration here. Koozie, I guess, just isn't fully aware that Daniel is feeling this way yet, and hopefully she picks up on that and kind of lays a little bit off of like the, oh, this is good for you, rather just diving deeper into the, I'm going to make this move because I want to make this move, not because of the BS reasons I'm trying to get you on board with.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it's honestly, we'll get there, but it is kind of tough to parse out exactly what Koozie's reasons are, because she is giving some pretty strong non-strategic reasons, and so I think that's probably part of the frustration here. But in the meantime, Hope and Renee are going to chat for a little bit. Hope says that everyone has figured out his age by now. This was something that did confuse me, because I remember people talking about Hope being 28, and I was like, I don't think he's 28, but I didn't bother to go look and check. He was claiming to be 28. He's only 23. But now everybody knows. And he says, Zach is treating me different ever since he figured it out. Um, and he,
This man is not passing for 28. I know it's not that big of a difference, but
yeah.
I can like look within myself as a 28-year-old and say if I was pretending to, when I was 23, if I said I was 20, no, it's noticeable, and I think that he said Zach had kind of caught on before he actually ended up telling people about it, which is like, yeah, of course he's going to treat you differently. A, you lied, and B, yeah, you're a little younger. This guy's 34, you're 23. It's a bit of an age gap, but the fact that he lied about it is now making it even weirder.
Mm. So he also is going to admit to being the fourth vote against her. Says Zach and Ty do know, but they didn't know at the time. He admitted it to them later. She is very understanding about it. She says she understands it was a pity vote. He says he knew the votes were there for her to stay. He only voted there that way because he knew Raw would be watching back and he felt bad. And she's like, that's great. Don't do it again. Votes are going to start to matter a lot more. They also both agree they're not really worried about Santina anymore. And she says, listen, you can't flip the vote this week. Whatever Koozie wants, you have to stay strong. This to me was a big indicator that a big initial indicator that Renee and probably the women already know that Koozie is feeling that she'll be putting Zach up on the block. And based on what Koozie says in just a little bit, I almost feel like there was a plan that came together, including the women, to make this happen, and perhaps even some kind of alliance or loose alliance between the women, Claudia, Renee, Shania, and the group of Koozie, Anika, and Daniel,
Mhm.
potentially, is what came together to make this happen.
She must have been so excited to go to them and tell them, I'm doing this other plan that's going to take out a big target, a big threat in the house potentially, and just to like in any HOH week to reaffirm an entire group of people that you're all safe. There's nothing to worry about when there is uncertainty because Koozie has been playing a nice like middle kind of game so far as I can tell. So to go to these people and say, I know you may not know, but we're all good, we're all safe. And if they did have some kind of like you said conversation to actually solidify something, at least for the week or for the time being, to come together, then it explains a lot of Koozie's thought process in different conversations throughout the day of just, I'm not touching Renee. Shanae is not doing much for me. If I try to target her, it doesn't make any sense. And even if Santina must have been included in on that, if she is backing off the Santina plan so strongly.
Mhm. Yes. So Koozie and Anika are going to chat, and this is going to be Anika's opportunity to try and change Koozie's mind, but she's trying to be sort of like light about it. Koozie says the reason she would take Zach out over Ty is because at least Ty is up front. Zach is like a rat. He'll bite your feet and then blow on it to numb your pain. And he's playing this dirty game of flirting with Daniel. It's not me trying to weaken Daniel. That's not what I'm doing. I just hate Zach's demeanor. So this is again, she's kind of like not admitting that she's making a play that weakens Daniel's position, which like is what she's doing. But it's unfortunately without seeing it enough of Koozie, it's hard to say. Like I think she genuinely has a good hate on for Zach. But you have to imagine she's also feeling strategically, I'm connected to Ty, he's connected to Daniel. But it's tough when like she will only give sort of that thing. I'm not trying to weaken you, Daniel. I'm just trying to look out for you because he's flirting with you and you're falling for it essentially. But it doesn't seem to be working super well with Daniel so far. We did not see a Koozie Daniel conversation in this drop, unfortunately.
Yeah, and if that's like a benefit to her that Daniel may be more in with her and Nika because Zach leaves the game. If that happens, that's something that maybe you just kind of keep to yourself because Daniel hearing about that and just kind of having that be part of the narrative is not really going to do much to help, especially since we're obviously seeing Daniel's already upset about it. So I think that the main push here is it's pretty obvious. The writing is on the walls. Zach is a big threat. Zach is a big player. Zach has a big ego. Zach is not somebody fun to live with. All of these points that she can very easily just kind of hone in on and say, these are the reasons I'm targeting him. But when you kind of like dance around 1,000 different reasons and like try to connect everybody and bring everybody into it a little bit and say, well, this is also going to help you. No, just make your move and go. And the little hairy parts of this are what could get her in trouble over the next couple of days.
Yes. Anika says she confronted Ty about not trusting him, and he denied having any game connection to Santina, and said that he is with her. And Koozie says, "Don't believe a word of that. He told me 2 days ago he'd put you on the block." And Anika says, "Well, that's my concern. Both Santina and Ty are looking to take one of us out. And so why are we leaving them both in the game when Zach might not do that?" And Koozie says, "No, look, they're coming after us no matter what. There's only 3 or 4 of them, and we are 6." She says, "Ty is really pissed off at me right now because he's been pressing me to not put Dan up, and I won't agree." So this is, again, I think, the next big indicator for me that some sort of group came together to make this Zach plan happen. And that group, I assume, is Koozie, Anika, Daniel, Claudia, Renee, Shania. And that those are the votes that she's relying on as well to make sure that Zach leaves if she puts Zach up on the block. So just this is Koozie's plan at this point, right? I think she's come together with the women. She's brought the women in with this middle group, and she's looking to take the shot at Zach. She'll have the numbers to do so. My own personal issue with this is that it's really, really great for the girly pops, the women. And it's not as good for the middle group, in my eyes, right? Because by taking Zach out, you're removing the biggest obstacle that the women had with working with some of the guys. Because the biggest obstacle that Renee and Shania and even Claudia have with working with Ty, Dan, and Hope is that they're all too connected to Zach. The second you take Zach out, and it's not even the women's fault that Zach went out, it's Koozie's fault. Now, all of a sudden, what is stopping Claudia and Ty, Shania and Dan, Renee and Hope from all kind of coming together? And even if they don't all come together lock solid, at the very least, it just puts those women in the power position of having those 3 guys connected to them who are also kind of connected to each other on one side, and then Koozie, Daniel, and Anika over there on the other side. Um, Positionally, it's a little risky, and I am kind of leaning on the side of Anika and Daniel in the sense that if you are going to take this shot, if you're going to piss off Ty and Zach and Dan and all of them anyway, you maybe do need to think about taking maybe Ty out, if not Dan. Um, Especially if like you're going to lose him as an ally anyway. The problem with that is that given where things stand right now, it's possible that might not even work because it's it's possible that these women will only vote Zach out. And if you try to pull a fast one and put Ty or Dan on the block, they might not vote with you anymore. And now the votes are looking a little more sketchy. Granted, you should have Jonathan and Vanessa, hopefully, but it gets a little sketchier. So it's a kind of a tricky position here, and I don't think there's like a super great answer to it.
And she also doesn't want to go after Ty. She's maintaining this connection with him where the two of them have been close, and people were worried that when she got HOH that Ty, and by process, or by whatever association, Zach would be maybe controlling things and trying to push their own narrative. But she's, and we'll get to the Koozie and Ty talk and see how their relationship is currently standing. But I still don't think at the end of the day it would make sense for her to go after Ty before Zach for her own personal game. And of course, you have to consider all things, the group and the people you're working with and all that kind of stuff, long-term effects. But she wants to, her thing right now is potentially, if I want to take a big shot and go after a big player, this big power duo, we just saw those diary rooms where every single person knows that Zach and Ty are working together and that they are the dominant force in the house. And the only way that she can break that up is by taking out the one person that she's not very close to, of course, rather than Ty, who she is close to. Obviously, exactly what you just said, there's a lot of complications that go along with it. I guess she's kind of hoping in her mind that this big group can just come together, and now they have a majority of 6 or 7 or whatever the numbers end up being, and just push everybody else out. They're talking about, obviously she has no love lost for Vanessa. They're talking about Jonathan being expendable, has to go home at some point. So Ty, I guess she, even though she has the connection with him, is kind of leaving him on the outs of all this. So I can see the vision that she has, but it's definitely, like you said, kind of making it easier for everybody else in the group when they're not going to have, maybe they'll vote to evict Zach, but they're not going to have the blood directly on their hands. So when the time comes, yeah, again, it's going to get hairy.
Yeah. And it's, of course, it's tough because, we have a limited perspective here. We're looking through like a peephole into this house, and there's a lot of stuff outside of our vision that we don't have. And so Kuzi may very well have information that I don't, that makes this make a lot more sense to her than it does to me. But this is the plan. Whether we like it or not, whether we think it's the right move or not, this seems to be the plan for now. Kuzi says, or Dan actually, this is actually very funny. So Kuzi's talking to Anika, and she's in the middle of saying that Ty's been pressing her to not put Dan up, and she won't agree. And then Dan comes walking right in, and he's like, "Am I interrupting anything?" They're like, "Nah, no, we don't talk game. What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Can I listen to some music?" She's like, "Sure." He goes into the bathroom and starts listening to music, and Kuzi keeps talking while he's listening to the music. Um, and so he's in the bathroom listening to the music. Kuzi's okay. So for me right now, I don't think it's a priority to get this one out, gesturing toward Dan. And Anika agrees. So she very much is on board, doesn't think it's worth getting Dan out. She really is looking at Ty. Anika says, here's the problem though. If Ty stays, he's going to use Claudia to get in with the women. Very concerning. Claudia, Kuzi says, no, not Claudia. It's not going to work. Anika says she might see what Ty's doing, but she's still with him. Plus, Ty is much better at competitions than Zach is. And Kuzi says, here's the thing, though. I have to look at it morally as well. I would happily lose the game to Ty. I would never want to lose the game to Zach. Ty scares me. Zach angers me. You know what he did the other day? He went to Renee. Zach went to Renee and said, "You're lucky you're a pretty face." The people are watching. I want this man out of the house. And during this conversation, I swear to you, they have an angle of Kuzi and Anika talking on the couches, and Dan is in the background, hopping around, listening to the music. Woo! Like occasionally just making some noise. Like, all right.
He's jump roping
So
without a
ridiculous.
jump rope. He's like, I kid you not, anybody that didn't watch this, jumping up and down while he's listening to the music for 10 minutes straight, like as if maybe this is part of his workout, which is entirely possible because he's pumping himself up, he's listening to the music, and he's just in the bathroom jumping up and down and up and down, and the entire time it is very funny. I hope that somehow they incorporate this into the episode of just the parallel of what's going on one side of this HOH room versus the other. I was like hoping, obviously, that he would go into the room and it's not exactly a Kevin Martin bbcan 3 of like, oops, he was in the bathroom, he overheard everything, but just kind of like maybe he wasn't actually listening to the music and trying to eavesdrop. I don't know if that's within Dan's playbook, but he like every time he would take like one AirPod out or one earbud out, and I was like, oh, maybe he put it right back in. He was just in there to vibe, listen to music, bounce up and down in the room, and the girls were not bothered at all. They were happy to just keep whispering. I mean, Anika talks very quietly anyway. I mean, her mic didn't seem to be working very well, but it was a very weird same thing in one room, two very different things going on.
So Kuzi says, Anika, I will happily campaign to leave next to you or Daniel next week if I need to. I will campaign to go on the block, and I will campaign to leave. I will use the veto on you. I swear. I am happy only to have taken out Zach in this game. He is crossing so many lines. He has a girlfriend at home, and he's kissing Daniel on the cheek, making Daniel fall for him. It's not okay. And I need him out of this house. And Anika says, all right, well, what can we trust Hope? And Kuzi says, no, we can't trust Hope. He's saying Zach is his number one. He's too all over the place. We can't trust Hope. Anika says, I'm just concerned because Hope is with Renee. There's that connection between Hope, Renee, Shania, Claudia. Shania is close to Dan. Ty is close to Claudia. I'm worried about this. Like Anika, who at the beginning of this game was having like the worst reads in the world, is now expressing my concerns to Koozie. And Kuzi's like, I'm not worried. If I talk to Shania well enough, then Shania won't trust Ty anymore either. So we'll be fine.
Just on
Sorry,
the point,
I said Shania. I meant Santina. If I talk to Santina well enough, she won't trust Ty.
Just on the point of Anika, very much excited about the prospects of her as a game player going forward, which I was not before the season. I was worried. She maybe, I guess, was onto something when she said, I'm just going to go in there and wing it. Like, she is winging it. And so far,
She's
her reads
learning.
are she's
Yeah.
learning, she's improving, she's making a lot more headway and a lot more just like showing that she's able to play this game than I ever expected. So just thumbs up on that. I mean, I'm excited for the future prospects of again her as a player.
Mhm. So Ty is going to again come into the HOH room and be like, hey, or try to go into the HOH room and be like, hey, when am I getting my talk? Like, you get back in there because we're talking. And Koozi's like, nah, sorry, I'm busy. So he doesn't get to talk to Koozie quite yet. He goes down and briefly mentions to Santina. He says, I'll tell you what she tells me after I finish. So he is very much still working on Santina. Uh, he eventually gets into the HOH room with Koozie, and she says that she is irritated because she has all these people trying to tell her what to do. She says, in no world can anyone convince me that Renee is a threat. At this point, I'm looking at Dan and Zach. I know you don't like that, Ty, but what I know is that if this was you, you would not make a weak move this week. I don't want to leave this game feeling like my only opportunity to make a move as HOH, I took out Renee. I just couldn't be proud if I took out a Shania this week. It just doesn't make sense. And Ty is like, whoa. He's like, well, but listen, Koozie, you don't understand. Nobody will be mad at you if you put up Renee. He's like, that's not true. Hope would be mad at me. He's like, nah, he voted her out. She's like, no, Hope would be mad. And Ty's like, well, did you come here to win or did you come here to take a big person out? Because if you take a shot at Dan, she's like, I don't need to take a shot at Dan. I can take a shot at Zach and it will land. I'm fully capable of thinking this decision through on my own, Ty. And he's like, okay. Well, from now on, I'll have to look at you like you're Renee. That's all it'll have to be. If that's what you're gonna be doing. She's like, don't try to make it out like I'm with Renee now. And he says, well, look, if you put up Dan, what happens if he stays? She says, let's, you know what? Let's stop using Dan as an example. Let's use Zach as an example. And he says, I can only use Dan as an example because if you put Dan up, I'll be upset, but I can still work with you. If you put Zach up, we're done. And she says, well, listen, the reason I'm not putting you up is because I can at least respect your game. I cannot respect Zach's game. And he's like, I just don't understand why you have to take a shot at one of our people. And they just continue to argue back and forth. He's like, you're not being real with me. He's like, I don't understand this whole Dan thing. She's like, I'm not putting up Dan. Like, that's not what's happening right now. And Dan walks in and then leaves again. And it's just all over the place.
And they're both getting very worked up, and they're both I guess as the conversation goes on, it's becoming more clear to Ty that this is not going in the direction that he wants it to go. He like you said, he's like, oh well, if you do Dan, then maybe I can live with that, and we'll still get Santina out of here, and it'll be fine. Dan will stay. We'll make the votes happen, but Zach's not gonna. It's not gonna happen with Zach. And even later on, he's still telling himself, and the conversations later of just it's not gonna be Zach. This isn't gonna happen. We just have to make sure that whatever other plan happens, he wants to push his weight around and just use the force that he feels like he is within the house to continue getting the results that he wants. It happened for the past 2 weeks, and why should this week be any different? His allies in power, he is expecting this week. He thought he knew what the plan was. He thought he knew who the noms were, and now the POV winner is making things a little bit different. There's obviously a need for a renom, and in his mind, him and Zach's conversations that we're not seeing any of them, or we haven't seen any of them. They must have been talking about, oh well, obviously she'll just put Renee up and get no blood on her hands. This will be an easy week. Renee, Santina, and they're probably saying, well, we'll just get Renee out of here, even though maybe he knows that she wants Santina out of here. They just kind of think that whatever plan that they have, because they've gotten their way the past 2 weeks, is what it feels like to me, that they'll continue to get their way. And now he's getting hit with the realization of, oh no, she's actually making a decision that is not what I want. And pushing back on her in a way to make it seem like she just has no idea what she's doing. And she's making it very clear. I know what I'm doing. I know what I want to do. I know I've thought this through all the way already. I know what I have planned. And he's like, no, but you don't. You're just not thinking it all the way through. It's so easy to just do Renee. Why wouldn't you just do Renee?
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I mean, it's fine. Like, whatever. All I'm gonna say is that it would be a bull decision. It's a weak move in my eyes if that's the move being weighed. But it's fine. It's fine. I mean, I'm not. It's whatever. And Koozie is like, I mean, Ty, like, what? Because he's like, he starts asking like, who do you think you're with? Like, do you think you're with Anika and Daniel? She's like, I mean, they're friends, but I don't know if they play the game very well. He's like, well, I'm with Anika. She's like, well, what about, you said you'd put Anika up. He says, well, I'd sooner put up Renee or Shania than Anika. And I don't even think about Daniel. Like, I'd never nominate him. She's like, and they continue to argue. And she brings up John Michael. And she's like, you were fine sending JM out, even though he was workable, because you're telling me that Zach and Dan are workable, but you sent JM out. What's up? What was up with that? He's like, well, JM was causing all these problems, saying he was coming after us. She said, yeah, because you didn't include him in anything. And then the feeds cut away.
Yeah, that was that was like, I was like, am I watching the live feeds or not? Because this is the kind of thing that you call somebody out on this kind of thing, and then producers are like, oh, uncomfortable, but they still put this in there because a lot of people were talking on Twitter, very justifiably so, about, oh look, a boys alliance got made, and who were the who was left out of it? The two gay men in the house, Daniel and John Michael, and now John Michael's gone, and all Ty can really say about it is, well, Daniel didn't even like John Michael that much anyway. He wanted him to go. Okay, and what does that have to do with you and the alliance that you built and who you invited into it or not? That's like so besides the point of what's going on right now. But I did love that she called him out on it, and I did not love the way that he reacted to it, and then it cut away. So that's the end of that.
Yes. By the time we cut back, Ty is now by himself, pacing back and forth in a bedroom. And he says to himself, you're not about to my game. Believe that. Not me.
Yeah.
So he goes downstairs and he goes outside and he sees Zach and a Hope. And we missed the beginning of this, but Zach says, I knew it. I think I know who it is too. I think he was essentially told like the conversation didn't go well. And Zach at this point is feeling like, okay, she's going to put up Dan. Ty says, listen, I need to talk to Hope right now. So Zach leaves and Ty goes to Hope and he says, listen, when do you want to go home? Hope's like, I was just talking to Zach about this. Like, I'm really feeling like I want to stay here now. I want to win comps. I want to stay as long as I can for you guys. I want to take a bullet for you guys when it matters the most. And Ty's like, well, I might need you to do something crazy this week with the veto. Hope's like, what? Like take Santina off? I might need it. She's like, oh God. Right after I decide I want to stay? And Ty's like, I'll let you know.
He says, I need to go gather some more information, make sure what the numbers are there to keep you in the house once you stay on the block, and then I'll let you know what I decide.
Mm-hmm.
Holy Godfather. I don't think that's how this
is his
works.
new plan.
I don't think that's how this works. I get the idea of like, okay, again, the writing is on the walls. He sees that this could be going in a direction he's not going to be happy with. So of course you explore every other possibility in your head. But then to like just come out with it, to go to Hope and be like, so you wanted to leave, right? Well, what if you don't want to leave? Okay, you don't want to leave anymore, but do you want to stay on the block and we could figure something else out? How's that sound? No, it's not going to happen. Hope is excited to be here and to keep winning competitions. And I guess I can't say it's not going to happen because I don't know Hope well enough as a game player. But I do imagine if this gets back to Koozie and Koozie finds out that Hope is staying on the block, I mean, it still could not change, Zach potentially would still go up, but I don't think that she would really allow him to stay in that headspace.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what Ty thinks he'll get away with Hope using the veto on Santina. My thought was that he'd just get Hope to not use it at all, and then just try to send Hope out this week as a sacrifice, essentially. Or maybe even lose Santina if he has to, and keep Hope around. Like either way, like he's keeping Zach and he's kind of screwing Koozie over. And so this is that play from Ty. So Ty's gonna grab Zach and he says, all right, Zach, first of all, you should have never talked to her. She was distraught last night because of how you talked to her. Now today, she's saying you attacked her. And Zach's like, what the Ty's like, so now she's stuck on either you or Dan going up. Zach's like, me? So you have to let me talk to her. Our backup right now is maybe we get Hope to use the veto on Santina. It's actually, she's that mad at me? She's like, Ty's like, yeah, she won't even talk to me. Zach's like, well, should I go apologize or no? I was like, yeah, yes, but you have to wait so it doesn't look like I told you. Zach's like, he walks off. He starts working out with Hope again. And then right before the drop ends, we just hear Zach mumbling to himself, oh man, is that the end of my game? Oh, and that's it.
They produced the end of this drop like it was a daily, like it not like it was an episode, like, you know, ending on a cliffhanger, which I don't know if that's been the case. Like I said, I haven't watched the rest of them all the way through, but it for whatever these drops are worth and whatever they're doing for anybody that are enjoying them, it was a very, you know, cinematic ending with this big cliffhanger of what's going to happen next. So I'm curious what's going to happen next. Obviously, Zach is very heated. However, your decisions, you know, however you come to think of this move for Koozie or whatnot, as far as entertainment goes, that's where I'm looking at this at the moment. I'm very excited to see Zach and Ty not get their way and how much they will potentially. It's not great for Koozie's game if this blows up, but for entertainment, I'm looking for the blow up that is going to come from Zach being on the block if that is where we ultimately land. So again, entertainment wise, I think that we're in for hopefully some good times ahead, depending on what gets shown and all that kind of stuff. So Zach's fired up.
Yeah. So that's about what we have. I mean, so the plan is for if Hope is to use the veto on himself, Zach is very likely to go up on the block. And if Zach goes on the block, I think it should be at this point locked in that the women are very happy to take Zach out. And that it would be Shania, Claudia, Renee, probably even Vanessa and Jonathan, as well as Anika. All votes to take out Zach, which would be 6, which would be more than enough to take Zach out if he's on the block, even if they didn't have Daniel's vote. Of course, however, you will have some potential resistance to this. Mainly being, again, you have Dan, Ty, and Hope all connected individually to each of those women in the girly pops. Can they exert enough influence to get them to change their minds, take out Santina, and then kind of like run a middle game between the guys against Anika, Koozie, Daniel, Jonathan, and Vanessa? Because that's not a bad play for them. And it's also not a bad play for them to take Zach out. Like, they are in a great spot here. That Koozie has kind of like gifted them the golden throne of Big Brother Canada 11 right now, and they can go in whatever direction they want and be in still the best spot. So that's kind of where things stand there. Not to mention the fact that if Daniel like really goes anti-Koozie, he could be part of influencing the women to go in that direction as well, which would be very, of course, devastating for Koozie's game. Then you have this possibility that maybe the veto doesn't get used, or maybe it gets used on Santina, and that's kind of strange. My assumption is that if it's used on Santina, Koozie just puts Zach up anyway. And then they still it's the same vote, except they're voting Zach out over Hope, and that maybe the vote flips around on Hope, but much less likely, in my opinion. If anything, I think it's worse for Ty and Zach if Santina comes off the block instead of Hope.
Vote. Yeah.
Then you could imagine, like, okay, will they realize maybe we should just leave the noms the same if we have the ability to control the veto? And then from that point, do they just take out Santina? Do they take out Hope? It's just completely up to them. And either way there, Koozie is also probably not in the best spot, considering that it's pretty clear that she was trying to take out Zach and then wasn't able to. So there's a lot left up in the air here in terms of where things will go. I imagine that by this time tomorrow, we will have some answers about what happened at the veto ceremony and probably what the initial plans for this vote will be. Will Daniel have calmed down and be on board to take Zach out if Zach is on the block? Are the women really on board, or is it possible that they might realize that they are in a position to actually make a different move if they want to? We will just have to wait and see.
I think you don't get a target like Zach on the block and then decide you're going to back out of that kind of plan. So I'm hoping that he goes. This is just my personal preference as a viewer of the show because he's a jerk and I like when the jerks go home. But yeah, there's a lot more game ramifications, all abound for everybody here. So it will be interesting to see how it plays out. I do think that Koozie is somebody who can get herself. She's confident in her abilities to talk to anybody in the house and get them back on the same page. And we're obviously not seeing a lot of those conversations that maybe she had with the women. So I don't know, we don't know how those went. But she feels pretty confident again that she can talk to Renee, talk to Shania, talk to whoever she needs to talk to and smooth things over. That she's probably hoping she can talk to Daniel C and smooth things over. So, as far as she's concerned, I think she is just riding on, let me just take the shot, make the move that I know I will look back on and be proud of for years to come, no matter how the season ends for me. And I'll figure this out along the way. She's like, if I go home next week because of it, fine. I know that she doesn't actually think she will, and I don't think she will either. But it's a ballsy move, and she's going for it, I think.
Yeah, and I will say, I think a couple of other small details here. One being that Ty telling Koozie, hey, I would much sooner put up Renee or Shania. That's information that Koozie can continue to use
Mm-hmm.
with the women to keep them anti-Ty if possible. And there's also the fact that, like, again, if both Daniel and Anika are going to continue to push Koozie to put up Ty, and she finds out that Ty's running around trying to get Hope to not use the veto and, talking smack on her, it is still theoretically possible that she does kind of come around to the idea of, like, maybe I should just go ahead and put Ty up on the block if he's going to be, like this, right? Not super likely, but just a couple of other things to track as potential outcomes here, as we still just don't really know what's going to happen. So, because at this time we are talking about what happened yesterday, which was Sunday the 26th, and so they had that full day, and then today up until when the veto ceremony happens, to figure out like whatever is going to happen here. So still lots of possibilities abound at this point.
Yep. We didn't touch much on, or touch at all on, there's a Hope and Zach conversation that I thought was worthwhile. So just quickly touching on that Hope was talking about how he doesn't have the best relationship with his dad. And he's hoping that after the game ends and after he goes home, he can kind of mend things there because they're not that close and they don't have, I think he was mentioning his dad, like just not always being around for him or for whatever. So it was just a nice touching bit of personal story there of him, wanting to make that better when he gets out of here, and Zach just being Zach. And I don't know, he wasn't being
it's your typical kind of like corporate motivational speaker, I think, in that
yeah.
moment.
It's
Yeah,
just like this is gonna
uh,
make you better.
yeah. Well, Hope basically was like, yeah, I told him I was coming on the show, or I was gonna be gone for a couple weeks, and he was just like, great, good luck, and that was it. And so like he's hoping to mend some fences, hopefully.
Yeah, so that'll be
Get a little
nice.
closer. Yeah.
And again, this was a pretty big strategy focused drop, so I was glad to see some personal stuff there. Did not see Vanessa once, right? Did we?
No.
Nope, not once. I was just trying to think at the end. I was like, did we not see anybody? Jonathan was there for maybe like a minute, walking into the HOH room, and I think I saw him in his bedroom at some point. But Vanessa, I don't think was spotted once. So that's I was looking out.
Well, there you go. All right, so that's what we have for you today. Of course, we're going to be live later at 8 p.m. or 8:30 p.m. Eastern to talk through the roundtable, the stock watch for the week. It's going to be an interesting one, as there are still some things left up in the air, but we are going to do our best and give some ratings. So stay tuned for that. And then, of course, tomorrow I will be back here at around this time, 3 p.m. Eastern, to update you on hopefully what happened with the veto, and again the plans for who is gonna leave probably, and it's looking like it could be Zach. Who knew? Uh, just everyone that called out how bad he was in the game, probably.
Anybody who ever made a preseason prediction about what Zach's game was going to look like.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that. You can find me over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong, hanging out, having a good time, watching these episodes live with all of you. You can fill out the survey for tonight's roundtable on Twitter. I'll tweet that out soon after this ends. And check out some Among Us videos over on the YouTube channel. Matt, what do you got going on?
On Twitter at Matt Ligori, over on the Dom and Colin podcast, talking about the Challenge World Championship with Brian Scally. Again, a show that Hope will probably hope to be on someday. He loves competing, so we'll see if MTV or CBS can ever make his challenge dreams come true. But that's where I'm at right now. All challenge all the time.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here today, and I will see all of you